Hey guys, and welcome to another video tutorial where we're going to be going over node routing. In this lesson we're going to cover the GET and the POST requests, and we're also going to cover a bit about how we can structure the routes a little bit nicer, so we can just add a file in and then it gets automatically read as the routes. So yeah, let's jump in. Okay guys, so welcome back, and in the last lesson, I think you can remember, we just got to this server is now running in development on port 2000, and then if we try and go to this port and localhost 2000 in the browser, we just get this cannot get. The reason why it says get here is because this is looking for the get request, as when you visit a page in the browser, it listens for get requests. So let's go over that now and just add a really basic fix into this. So let's say set up the routing, and what we can do is we can do app dot and then we can use dot get or dot post if we're doing a post request, but let's stick with just dot get for now. We'll set it to the base URL, so just a /, and then this returns a function which gives us the two parameters request and response. Okay, so once we have these, we can now just do like res.send, and this will send some information back on this endpoint, and we'll just do hello world, the classic, and then if we restart the server, and by the way guys, if you don't want to restart the server every time you want to make a change, you can install nodemon. So you just do like npm install nodemon-g, and the -g just makes it install globally, so you don't have to install it over and over again. But then once that's installed, you can just go into your package.json. On the start, we can just change the node to nodemon, like so, and then when you next run npm start, it will start listening for changes, and every time you make a change, for example, if I just add a few lines in here, it will then restart your server. So if we refresh this, you can see that we get hello world. So now let's change this into a bit more of a API sort of feel and look. So normally you'd have, on an API, you'd have either a subdomain or like a folder, like so. We're going to do folder just because subdomains are a little bit harder to set up on localhost, and we're not going to go into that right now. So we're just going to do an API folder, and then we have a version, so like version 1. This is like a pretty smart thing to do with your APIs, because then when you want to refactor and update it, you can just make a new version. You don't have to change all the routes at once. You can change it slowly over time, which is obviously better. Okay, so once we have that, we just then choose an endpoint name. So maybe let's just do like user, because like users are pretty much a common or like guaranteed one to have. So instead of just doing res.send, we probably want to do a JSON response if we want this to be an API which people can sort of connect to, or maybe just you connect to and use on your front end website. So let's just do res.json, and that's going to allow us to return a JSON object. So let's just put in a fake JSON object for a user here. So maybe we'll just have like name, and let's do the classic age. Okay, so once we have that and we then go to this endpoint, you can see it now splits out some JSON for us. By the way, you might not see it like this, you might see it something like this. It's just because I've got a Chrome extension which allows me to view JSON a little bit nicer in the browser. Okay, so one issue here is that if we put all of our routes here, it's just going to get clogged up in this one file, and that's not very pretty and it's not very nice to look through. So let's split this up into different files. How I like to organize my files is just by creating a new folder called routes, and we'll have that inside the app folder. Okay, so in here, I'd like to just have a new file for every sort of type of routes. For example, I'd have a file for like the user routes, like so. And then we want to do module.exports, and it exports a function, and it's going to just do that for now. So we're going to just go into the server and we're going to be like, okay, so we want to move this, and we want to put it in here, basically, is what we're asking to do. But you see that we need this app variable here so that we can even run the get function. So let's pass into this module exports through the parameter, and how we can then require this is we can just do require, and then roots and user. We don't need to do the .js if you're requiring JavaScript files, by the way. And then in open closing brackets, we can then just pass in the app. And then you can see that my server is restarting each time. And then if we refresh, we should get exactly the same thing, but now it's not there, it's a little bit nicer. But we still have this issue where if we have tons of files in here, we're going to have like this just clogging up this file. So it'd be nice if we have a function which reads this directory, reads the files inside, and automatically acquires them. Well, that's what we're going to do. So to do this, we need another dependency called fs. So that's npm install fs --save. And fs stands for file system, and this is, as it says, going to give access to the file system. So let's require this by doing const fs is require fs. Okay, so this package has a function called read directory sync, like so, and that function accepts one parameter, which is going to be the directory you want to read. You might just assume that you can do this, but that won't work because this reads from the file system and not from the current working directory. But luckily in JavaScript we have a variable given to us called __dir_name, which gets the current working directory. So before we do this, let's just console log that variable so we can see what it is. Okay, so let's do npm start, and you can see that the current working directory is this. Alright, so that's perfect, that's exactly what we need. So let's put this in backticks and make it a variable within that so we can just keep typing on the rest. So we want to just go into the roots folder after that. Okay, so this function is going to return an array of all of the file names in this folder. So what we can do is we can just map through that array, and then the map will return a function which gives the name or the file name as the parameter. So let's just say file. And then what we can do is we can just copy this and put it in here instead. But instead of user, we're just going to replace these single quotations with some backticks. And we're just going to put file. And that should automatically read this directory and then read all the files within that directory and require them for us. So when we want to add a new root, we just add a new file. Makes a lot of sense. Okay, so that's running, and if we refresh, we get the same thing. Great. Okay, so the next thing we're going to look at is the different request types or methods. So for example, we use .get here, and we could copy and paste this and put in .post. But what I quite like to do is use .root, which allows us to close the bracket off at the end of the URL, and then instead of this comma, we can just do .get and then open the bracket. And this will allow us to chain on different request types for this one root, and that's a little bit nicer, especially when we come to the next tutorial where we introduce controllers, and this file becomes a hell of a lot neater. But for example, now I have this get request, I can do .post, and it accepts the same request and res, and again we'll use the arrow function. Okay, so what do we want this post request to do? Keeping it simple, we probably want it just to spit out like your name is, and then allow the user to be able to post the name. So first we need to collect the name. So we do const name is equal to request.body.name. And that's going to look into the body of the request and find the name. And then we're just going to do res.json, and we'll say message using backticks. Your name is, and then we'll use name. Okay, so we probably should be returning these also, these res.jsons. Okay, so now once we've done that, I'm going to use Postman to sort of mimic these post requests. So let's do HTTP localhost 2000 /API /v1 /user. And then we'll just change this to a post request, and we'll put in a body of the URL encoded, and we'll say name is Joe. And then if we press send, you'll see that we get an undefined name. So it's trying to read this body and it can't, and that's because the server doesn't know what to do with this information that you've given it. It doesn't know to pass it into the body. So for that, we need a body parser. So let's install that dependency. npm install body parser -- save, and then once that's installed, we can then go ahead and do const body parser require body parser, like so. Okay, so how do we tell, now that we've done this, how do we tell the app to pass the body? So let's just put a comment in saying tell the app to pass the body of the request, like so. And we can do app.use, and then we can do a body parser, and then we do dot, and this is going to have quite a few options. So one of the options that we want to accept is obviously this URL encoded one. So let's go back here and just type in URL encoded, and that's a function. It accepts some options, but for now we don't need to worry about these options. And we also want to accept the same thing, body parser, but also we want to accept JSON. And this is if you're posting to the API from a front end, you're probably going to use the application / JavaScript header, or application / JSON, I think it is, sorry. Okay, so once we've done that, it now knows we can pass the body. So let's just do npm start the server up, and try this post request again. And we get your name is Joe, so as we expect. And then if we don't include this name and click send, we get your name is undefined. So maybe we'll just add something in real quick. And we can be like, if no name, then we can return the res, and we can change the status code of the response by just doing .status, and we can set it to 422, which is an unprocessable entry. And then we can do .json, and we can just say message, you need to supply a name, like so. And then let's send again, and it'll be a message, you need to supply a name, instead of whatever it was before. And then we can do, and we can see that the status is a 422 unprocessable entry. One thing I just picked up on is if we look back in terminal, you'll see that the body parser has a depreciated undefined extended. We can get rid of this. We can just pass in here an option. Right where I said we didn't need an option, guess what? We need an option. So if we just set extended to true, then that should get rid of that depreciated, and everything will still work exactly the same. And then let's just import the name. There we go. Okay guys, so that was it for this tutorial. We went over some basic routing and the get and the post quest method. We went over creating a folder reader so that we don't have to change the server.js file every time we want to add some new routes. And yeah, I reckon that was a pretty solid tutorial on routing. So don't forget to subscribe and like this video, subscribe to upcoming videos using the bell, and have a great day. See you later.